Greetings, everyone. Putin was furious as a billion-dollar warship was destroyed by Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, how could a country without a real navy manage to defeat more than a third of Russia's most powerful fleet in the Black Sea? This is not just a war. This is a revolution that is completely rewriting world military history. In today's video, we will uncover a harsh reality closing in on Putin and the Russian military. From the blow dealt to the cruiser Moskva in 2022 to the relentless attacks by the beasts Maguza and Shababi in 2026, the once proud Black Sea Fleet is now forced to flee in its own backyard. There is an undeniable truth that Ukraine has proven to the whole world in this war. That is, no matter how large and powerful the opposing force may be, it will still be struck repeatedly at its weakest points until it is completely paralyzed. And right now, Putin's Black Sea Fleet, once considered a powerful strategic trump card, has truly become easy prey, lying still and waiting for death in its own waters. This fleet, after 4 years of suffering bitter tactical defeats, has been desperately searching for a safe harbor to take shelter, but now they are engulfed in flames right at their own bases. Remember, Russia's original goal was to turn the Black Sea into its own private lake with more than 70 warships, in order to choke off Ukraine's multi-billion-dollar grain export lifeline. However, those billion-dollar steel monsters have fallen before the limitless creativity of asymmetric warfare from a country that doesn't even have a real navy to speak of. It wasn't the opponent's massive destroyers that shattered the illusion of Russia's invincibility, but rather those ghostly silhouettes that have completely redefined modern naval warfare doctrine. They silently slipped past the blind spots of the Zadar system, infiltrated deep into the lair, and sank Russia's pride to the bottom of the sea. Right after this, we will decode the strange structure of these tireless predators. But first, let's turn back time to see how that once famous fleet got trapped in its own backyard. It's now April 2026, and Russia's fleet, which was once the undisputed ruler of the Black Sea, is stuck in port after losing more than a third of its warships. The fleet commander's dismissal was already on the agenda. The remaining ships now can do nothing but secretly launch 1 or 2 missiles each month and then quickly retreat. And most importantly, even the last permanent base that Russia chose as a safe haven is now within range of intense firepower. This is the story of one of the most astonishing naval defeats in modern military history. The first page of this tragic chapter was written in April 2022 when the cruiser Moskva, the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, was sunk by Neptune anti-ship missiles produced by Ukraine itself. The whole world couldn't believe its eyes. The sinking of the giant cruiser Moskva was not just a military loss. It was the first crack that shattered the myth of Russia's unrivaled power, and Neptune was only the beginning. At that time, Ukraine only had a very limited number of missiles, but each launch was strategically calculated. Because of the shock of the Moskva sinking, Ukraine quickly diversified its arsenal. The Harpoon anti-ship missiles provided by allies began to become a nightmare for Russian ships in the Black Sea. The Bayraktar TB2 drones continuously carried out reconnaissance and attack missions, closely monitoring every movement of the Russian fleet, laying the groundwork for large-scale coordinated operations. But the real revolution on the water only began when Makarov appeared. With a length of 5.5 meters weighing less than 1 ton, but capable of carrying up to 320 kg of explosives, Makarov can reach speeds of 40 to 50 knots and has an operational range of up to 800 kilometers in a single mission. This type of sea drone operates so close to the water surface that it can evade detection by modern radar screens. But Makarov is not alone. During the same period, Ukraine also developed the Sea Baby unmanned surface vehicle, a larger platform with more devastating power, capable of carrying over 1,000 kg of explosives. When these two sea drone types operated together, they completely disrupted Russia's defensive plans. In February 2024, a swarm of Makarov drones sank the Tarantul-class ship Ivanovets right in Sevastopol. Just a month later, the patrol ship Sergei Kotov, worth about $65 million, also suffered the same harsh fate. Meanwhile, Sea Baby drones launched direct attacks on Sevastopol port, causing severe damage to a landing ship. At the same time, Ukrainian engineers upgraded oldest 200 air defense missiles to attack ground and surface targets. These modified weapons have also been effectively used to target Russian positions in Crimea. Along with that, the British Storm Shadow cruise missiles and the ATACMS ballistic missiles provided by the United States have systematically attacked Russian naval infrastructure in Crimea. In particular, Ukraine's domestically produced FPV drones, with a range of up to 1,600 kilometers, have begun to threaten targets in the most remote corners of the Black Sea. In August 2025, an FPV drone struck a Bayan-class corvette equipped with Kaliber missiles while it was offshore. At a distance of up to 350 kilometers, marking an unprecedented milestone. By this time, the situation had completely reversed and turned against Russia. From the start of the full-scale war until April 2026, Ukraine had sunk or seriously damaged a total of 29 to 33 Russian warships and vessels of various types, including 2 submarines. So what did Russia do? They fled, but running to Hogia is a dead end with no way out. After Ukraine's sea drones turned Sevastopol into a terrifying nightmare, Russia moved most of its Black Sea fleet eastward to the port of Novorossiysk. Their logic is very simple. This area is 200 to 350 nautical miles away from Ukrainian-controlled territory, and it's expected to be out of range of unmanned vehicles. At least that's what Moscow had hoped. But Ukrainian engineers have extended the range of their drones every month, and the breakwaters protecting Novorossiysk are no longer a shield. On the contrary, it has turned into a cage. The assessments in Naval News Analysis in April 2026 were truly shocking. If they stay in port, the fleet will have to endure airstrikes. But if they venture out to sea, they are completely unable to defend against swarms at sea. Worse still, Russia no longer has any other ports to retreat to. Sochi port lacks the infrastructure to support large-scale fleet operations, and Ochanchia near the Zaxia border is too small and limited. If they retreat to the Caspian Sea via the Volga-Don Canal, that would mean an exile with no return. The Black Sea fleet has literally fallen into a trap, and this trap is tightening with each passing week. At dawn on April 6, 2026, Ukraine once again slammed shut the lid of the trap. A coordinated attack with more than 50 drones was directed at Point 1, and one of the most important targets was the frigate Admiral Makarov, one of the most valuable assets remaining of the Black Sea fleet. This is not an ordinary ship. After the cruiser Moskva was sunk in 2022, it officially became the flagship of the fleet. With caliber cruise missiles that have a range of up to 2,500 kilometers, it can strike almost any target across Ukrainian territory from Novozorsk. Admiral Makarov is the last warship still capable of launching caliber missiles in the Black Sea. The footage shared that night by Robert Magzabrody, commander of Ukraine's unmanned vehicle forces, revealed the entire scenario of the attack. As Ukraine's long-range drones approached from the sea, the air defense systems on the Admiral Makarov went wild, firing frantically. The searchlights pierced the silent night as anti-aircraft tracers lit up the sky. But none of it was enough. The drones managed to reach their target. Commander Brobdy described the attack as a highly effective draw and said that intelligence is currently assessing the damage. With the ship docked in the port and suffering additional damage on top of previous hits, its combat capability has been reduced to almost zero. Although there has been no official confirmation about the type of drone used, clues from the video all point to the long-range FPV-1 drone. A chapter has just closed, and a harsh new reality is now surrounding what remains of the Russian Navy. With an astonishing range of up to 1,600 kilometers and the ability to carry a warhead weighing more than 120 kilograms, this drone is the ideal weapon to destroy the last remaining Russian escort ship capable of launching caliber missiles in the Black Sea. However, on that fateful night, it wasn't just Admiral Makarov who had to endure a powerful blow. Hundreds of kilometers to the east at the Kerch Strait, special forces from the Ukrainian Military Intelligence Agency, known as HUR, used drones to attack and completely destroy the Russian railway ferry Slavyanin. Ukrainian intelligence confirmed that this was the last operational Russian railway ferry at the Kerch Strait, serving as a vital supply line for military logistics to the peninsula. The ship was seen burning fiercely in the night. Also in the darkness of that night, a third target was attacked, an offshore oil rig off the Crimean coast. Although it is not a ship, it is one of the vital arteries in Russia's energy and logistics infrastructure. 3 strategic targets in just one night: a frigate, a ferry, and an oil rig. All these unbelievable feats were accomplished by a country that doesn't even have a proper traditional navy. At this point, we need to take a step back to look at the bigger picture. What made Russia's Black Sea Fleet such a vulnerable target? It's not simply because of a single weapon system or an individual tactical mistake. This is a story about a systemic collapse, rooted in the past. First and foremost, the entire defensive architecture of the Russian Navy was built to counter completely the wrong enemies. The S-300 Panzer S-2 and Tor missile defense systems were originally optimized to intercept large, fast, high-altitude threats. However, the drones deployed by Ukraine are compact, fly at low altitudes, leave almost no trace on radar, and carry out coordinated swarm attacks with dozens of drones at the same time. In this swarm tactic, some drones act as decoys, others as markers, and the rest head straight for the target with devastating destructive power. Ironically, each Russian air defense missile costs dozens of times more than the drone it targets, leading to a gradual depletion of weapon supplies. Even Russian military bloggers have started complaining about the severe missile shortage. The second major issue is the terrain. Novorossiysk is a seaport trapped in a rugged mountain range. The breakwaters, originally built to protect ships from storms, have now become walls that confine them in a cramped space. The ships cannot maneuver, cannot disperse in emergencies, and cannot use each other as shields. Some submarines have even been forced to dive right at the harbor to reduce the chance of being detected by drones. This is a painful testament to how desperate their situation has become. The third concern lies in the repair crisis. Turkey has closed the straits to warships according to the Montreux Convention. This means that damaged ships cannot leave the Black Sea to reach other shipyards for repairs. With limited capacity at Novorossiysk port and a shortage of spare parts, any damage becomes a permanent wound. A ship that is hit can only lie idle at the port until it can be repaired. And even after it has recovered, Ukraine can still strike it again. The fourth issue is the cracks in the chain of command. Reports about the fleet commander, Admiral Guy Pintruk, being about to be dismissed due to systematic failures have caused a stir even within the Russian military circles. Early warning systems are not working effectively, reserve forces are responding too slowly, and coordination between units has become extremely weak. According to reports, there are delays of 20 to 40 minutes between the alarm and the intervention, which is more than enough time for a drone to approach and destroy its target. When strategic blindness combines with all these structural problems, the result is a complete disaster for Russia. Moscow has been too slow to take unmanned naval vehicles seriously. While Ukraine continuously develops these technologies, the Russian Navy still puts its trust in giant ships and classical naval doctrines. By the time they started producing their own unmanned systems, it was already too late. This is when the basic rule of asymmetric warfare comes into play. Ukraine, by using disposable drones, only spends a few $100,000 per attack, but Russia is losing assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars every time a ship is sunk. As Naval News succinctly analyzed, while Russian sailors have to achieve 100% accuracy against every threat, the Ukrainians only need to get lucky and hit the target once. No defense system can permanently shift this balance in Russia's favor. On April 3, 2026, a grain ship attacked by Ukraine revealed a new aspect of the war. The cargo ship Volobanseling, off the coast of occupied Kherson in the Sea of Azov, was reported to have been sunk. Previously, the Sea of Azov was always considered a relatively safe place, but now that has become a thing of the past. The threat from Ukraine's drones has spread to every corner, every coastline, and every port of the Black Sea. So what do all these developments mean for Putin, for Russia, and for the global geopolitical balance? Its consequences go far beyond the list of warships that have been sunk. From Ukraine's perspective, the achievements are truly significant. Control over the Western Black Sea has largely shifted to Ukraine. The port of Odessa has become safe again, and grain exports have reached pre-war levels, bringing a lifeline worth billions of dollars to Ukraine's struggling economy. Supply lines to Crimea have been heavily restricted by various pressures. Ferry boats have been attacked, and the Kerch Bridge has lost most heavy transport capacity from repeated cruise missile and drone attacks. By maintaining pressure on this bridge, Ukraine is forcing Russia to redirect its air defense systems to protect it, making other fronts more fragile and vulnerable. Caliber missile attacks have decreased to only once or twice a month. The frequency and intensity of missile attacks on Ukrainian cities have noticeably decreased. According to an analysis by the Carnegie Endowment in April 2026, Ukraine's asymmetric approach has rendered the Russian Navy almost incapable of operating. For Russia, these losses are not only military but also economic and political. Novorossiysk is not only a naval base, but also the site of the largest oil export terminal. The repeated attacks on Shishkari are directly threatening Russia's energy exports. Commercial shipping insurance costs in the Black Sea have soared. As war risk premiums rise, trade routes become more expensive, and some tanker companies are reducing their voyages to the Black Sea. However, the political and reputational losses may be the heaviest blow. The pride in Vladimir Putin's supposedly invincible Russian Navy has been completely shattered. A country without a navy has actually expelled Russia from the Black Sea. This harsh reality has sparked waves of criticism within Russia, and the dismissal of admirals due to systemic failures is becoming a hot topic of discussion. The Black Sea Fleet used to be part of Russia's image as a great power, but now that image is sinking to the bottom of the sea. Russia's Black Sea Fleet is not just a regional guard, it is the key to projecting power in the Middle East and the Mediterranean. All logistical support operations for the Tartus base in Syria are provided from here, and the southern flank of NATO is always threatened by this fleet. Today, that fleet is forced to hide behind the walls of its own harbor. Russia has lost its influence in the Mediterranean. The shockwaves on the geopolitical stage are spreading wider and wider. On NATO's side, a comprehensive awakening is taking place. The reality of how cumbersome and fragile traditional naval forces are has been laid bare right before their eyes. Would a powerful U.S. aircraft carrier strike group, the pride of the oceans, if surrounded by hundreds of unmanned sea drones, end up in a deadlock as disastrous as the S-300 systems? That question is echoing painfully and is fiercely debated right in the corridors of power in Washington. For naval forces around the world, the discussion is no longer about whether we should possess this technology, but has shifted to a real state of panic: how to develop defense systems against it as quickly as possible. China is considering the operations in the Black Sea as a practical laboratory from which it is accelerating investment in drones for its South China Sea strategy. Beijing is having to completely rewrite its military doctrine based on the harsh reality that massive ships are now almost incapable of defending themselves against small but deadly drones. At the same time, smaller countries, which have long been at a disadvantage in naval power, have now found a new ray of hope. They realize that they no longer need billion-dollar fleets to protect their territorial waters or control sea routes. Because for the price of a single destroyer, one can produce hundreds of sea drones with equivalent destructive power. More importantly, this production process only takes a few months instead of decades of waiting. Ukraine has truly democratized naval warfare, turning it into a game where the underdog can also turn the tide. Putin's allies, from Iran and China to South Korea, are all silently watching this bitter defeat of Russia. Even though there are no public criticisms in order to maintain a united front against the West, behind the scenes they are all drawing the same hard-learned lesson. The era of giant warships is gradually coming to an end, and the era of drones has officially begun. And Ukraine, a country that doesn't even have a proper navy, is the one writing the first pages of history by winning the first major battle of this new era. Even if Russia tries to rebuild its fleet, they are still forced to accept a bitter new reality. Next month, Ukraine's systems with ever-expanding range are ready to turn Russia's last bases along the Black Sea coast into ashes. So do you believe that the era of giant aircraft carriers and destroyers has truly ended after what Ukraine has demonstrated? And what will Russia do to escape the pursuit of Ukraine's UAVs?